there, I'm Renee. This channel is Renée, and I just wanted to jump on here and let this serve as an introduction to part 2 of this all things bringing your pet to France and what to do once you're here with your pet. My pet who just went for a walk and really wants to aggressively play right now. So let this be the intro to that second part of the video. And there's only one thing I would add to the second video that I thought of after I filmed it. Paolo was on medication in the US as a preventative for flea, tick, I think it was triplexus, but it was like 3 things: flea, ticks, and like heartworm. And when I spoke to the vet about that here and asked for a new medication or a similar medication here, he kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And he's like, why would you give your dog something they don't have? Happy to treat him if he has any of those things, but it's very hard on the dog's body. This is what he said. It's very hard on the dog's body to process medication like that every month when they don't need it. So the process here was he gave me a flea and tick to give him if I ever see anything on him. I'm to give it to him right away, and then which will take care of that instance. And then he's like, pop back in and I'll give you another one to have as a backup. So you always have a backup at home. This is what my vet in France told me. I don't know if another vet in France would tell you something different. So please consult your vet. I am not a vet. I am just a fur baby mom telling you what I've gone through and what my experience has been. So please consult with your vet and make your own informed choices. That to me is the most important reason that I wanted to do this channel, is to really, yes, talk about my experiences, but really empower people to make the best choices for themselves. So with that, here's part 2 of Paolo in France. Thanks. One of the things in coming to France, Facebook groups are a gold mine here, and most places that we have been will have a local Facebook group for the community. And the place that we were spending a chunk of time over these last 10 months or so, I went to that Facebook group and asked for a local vet recommendation, a local toiletière, which is a pet groomer, and a local dog boarder. I knew I was moving in August, but I also knew that I was going back to the States to see my older children in December for the holidays. So I knew I would need a boarding situation right away. So I found those things ahead of time, got them booked up. And but when I asked for recommendations, it's just amazing. Within a few minutes, a bunch of people will reply, and you'll see a common thread of everybody recommending the same local vet or the same dog boarder, and that's kind of what happened for me and how I found those things right away, and they turned out to be great. So Facebook is a really important thing to use after arrival. Let me just check my notes here. So when you take your pet to the vet for the first time in France, make sure you take a copy of all of their medical history, their vaccination record, and I went ahead and took the health certificate as well. I don't know that I recall that the vet actually looked at it, but I did have it with me. He helped me fill in this form that will record your dog's uh, you okay? Okay. That will record your dog's microchip with French government. So he filled out the form. I will tell you though, the form has to be sent in with a copy of the medical history and a check for 11 euros. Now, thankfully for me, I had opened my French bank account by that time and had a check that I could write, but just a call out, make sure that you've done that because you will need to write a check to submit with that. And that was the fee when I sent mine in, the 11 euros, and I sent it in January of 2025. Also, make sure you've got a French phone number by that time. I had gotten my French phone number before I actually even left the States. And so I had put it on the form. After I sent the form in, it was probably about 2 weeks later that I got a text message on my French phone letting me know that they had processed the file and giving me a link to do the login on their site. And once I logged in, I could see and double check that all of Paolo's information was there, all of his vaccination information was there, and as well as my information as his owner. So everything's in one spot, and I could print out the letter that allows the vet to know that he is now registered with the French government. Then I took that letter back to the vet with Paolo, and the vet then issued his French passport. He got his French passport. I'll stick a picture of it in the guide. And so I'm jealous. Paolo became French before I will. But anyway, so he got his French passport. It's actually an EU controlled document that allows him to travel within the EU. He can travel up to 3 weeks outside of France to any place in the EU on that document. At least that was the information that the vet had explained to me. Now, a couple of things. I did get a small bag of kibble that I brought in the suitcase for him, as well as I brought some of his cans of wet food that I would mix in. So I wasn't then looking at changing his food abruptly on this journey. So I brought those things knowing that that would give me a few weeks to find food or to make a change if we had to. In that first week, I did a simple search on my phone for dog food nearby. And the place that I was at had a garden center, top of the list. It came up. So I went to the garden center and they had a huge pet department. And Paolo was on Science Diet in the US, kibble, Science Diet kibble for puppies at the time, along with the Science Diet wet food. And that place actually had, it's called Science Plan here in France. But other than that, the bag was exactly the same with the same branding and everything. So I knew it was the same food. So I was able to keep him on the same kibble that he was on it in the US. They didn't have the wet food, the Science Diet wet food that I had him on. So I did get some cans of, it's called Edouard Cooper. It's a well-known French pet food brand. I got some of their wet food and then gradually kind of mixed it in. So I was able to transition him to that wet food over that course of that first month. And that worked out well. So yeah. Other things to think about bringing with your pet. I checked, Paolo's got a little kennel that's like a fold up thing. I checked that with my checked bags. So he would have that kennel. At this point, he doesn't sleep in that kennel anymore. But if I go out and go anywhere, I do put him in the kennel to make sure that he's safe and can't get into trouble. So I did bring that and checked that. I also brought his favorite blanket and some toys of his, just some things that would bring familiarity. I had actually ordered a new dog bed for him because the bed that I had gotten when I first got him, he'd kind of outgrown it. So I ordered him a new one off of Amazon in the weeks leading up to the move. And then I just left it in the airtight sealed bag. So it was small, and threw that in my suitcase. So he got that as a prize when we got here. Other than that, like for him, he's got coats and sweaters and things like that because his coat's relatively thin. So I brought a few of those things. But in the weeks and months since we've been here, I've also found in France there is a brand called Max Zoo. It's a chain. It's similar to PetSmart in the US, and they have food and toys and like all of the things. And throughout the winter months, they had coats and raincoats and winter coats and all of the things. So we've been able to get everything that he's needed from there. And I actually have their preferred customer application, which gives me discounts and things like that, downloaded on my phone. I'll make that a different video because it is a French application, which you can't necessarily download if your country isn't listed as France, but I'll do a different video about that and give you a little workaround that I thankfully Apple helped me with. So anyway, in those days, getting used to life here in France, having Paolo for that process has just been amazing. In those initial weeks, we took long walks every day. And I will tell you, having a pet with you in France is an immediate social icebreaker. We would take our walks every day, and so people would see us more than for that first week. And then it was like, oh, you weren't just visiting, you're still here. And then they would stop and ask me questions. What's his name? What was his dog breed? How old is he? Things like that. And in short order, I just figured out that if I could respond to those questions in French and have some questions in French at the ready about their dog to respond with, suddenly I could find myself in a nice little beginner dialogue that would get some connections started. The first place that we stayed, we actually one day we were walking through the local park and ran into a lady. Suddenly Paolo and I turned a corner and I see a lady and her dog, and she had an Italian Greyhound, and she came running toward us. because she's like, I don't see these every day here. And yeah, her dog was a bit older, so she was super excited to see Paolo, and see an Italian Greyhound puppy. So that was a nice icebreaker. And yeah, and in France, dogs can basically go anywhere. The places they can't go. Sometimes the La Poste doesn't want you to bring them in there, but I will tell you, if you are in smaller villages, they're less likely to care. I've taken Paolo into the La Poste in Aimé or in Périgueux, in a few places. In Surrey, he went in there with me, but and then there are other places that I wouldn't take him in. The one lady at a La Poste that we were in was pretty strict, and so I never took him in there. She was by the book, and so I didn't take him in there. But I typically, any place I go with him, I always just ask as I'm entering. But I have been in markets where I've seen another person with their dog on a leash in a supermarket, even though typically you can't take them in markets. Sometimes you see them. Typically you wouldn't take them into the bank. I don't think I've ever seen a dog in a bank, but I'm sure somewhere in this country there is probably someone who has taken their dog into a bank. Restaurants, places like that, they're just an extension of the family at a meal. They'll be brought a dish of water for under the table. I've seen dogs have plates of food come out in a restaurant. Yeah, it's just not, they are a welcome part of the family. So all in all, like, life in France is pretty great with a four-legged family member. Yeah, it's I think they're, like I said, they're really good icebreakers, and it just gives you a place to open conversation with locals. Paolo regularly goes to the toilettage, which is the dog groomer, for regular nail trims and the occasional bath, mostly nail trims. They're quite easy to find. Like I mentioned, I've used Facebook to find them. Where we are now, I just walked past one the other day and went, oh wait, he needs a nail trim, and popped my head in and asked if I could make an appointment. And she literally stopped in the moment and trimmed his nails. And I put some cost information in the guide that I put together about moving your pet, about what my experience has been, about how much things cost. But generally, like a nail trim, I've paid anywhere from €2 to €6, which is way less cost-wise than I used to pay in the States. One place we were, he got into something and ended up with an upset tummy. I think he just like drank some standing water that was standing from a rain. And anyway, it had gastrointestinal upset. And I used the local Facebook group to find a vet who was literally right down the street from me, and I called there and they took him right away, and it was just an amazing experience. He got some medication, got checked over, he was fine. My mind was definitely at ease, and that whole thing I want to say it was right around 30, 38 euros, something like that, for 3 different medications and a check. And he was fine a day or 2 later, thanks to the medication and a really, really lovely, kind veterinarian that also could speak some English, but I explained to him that I was moving here, and so he's like, well, then you need to practice your French, so let's practice French. So yeah, so we did. But yeah, I have not had a bad experience with anyone along the way. Everyone is very, very gracious. And owning a pet in France is a lot less expensive than, granted, my frame of reference is Southern California, which was quite pricey, but much less expensive in France. So anyway, I have created a guide with all of this information and way more details of the costs along the way, all of the details of the things that we've had to do, everything you need to be aware of, things to consider. I will leave a link so you can download a copy of that in the show notes below this video. I hope that this helps you to feel a little bit more prepared, a little less anxious perhaps about bringing your fur baby to France. I know for me, having Paolo with me on this journey has greatly enriched my experience of it. Since I'm on my own, he's really my partner in crime here. So, he goes everywhere with me and does everything with me. And it's just made this experience so much richer to have him here. So I'm so glad that we were able to do it, that I feel like he is very well cared for here, that I have everything I need to care for him well here. And we will both have an enriched and beautiful life here in France. So thank you for listening, and I hope this was helpful. If there's any questions that you have, feel free to pop them in the comments below, and I'll make sure I look at everything and reply or tell you if I don't know something. But anyway, I hope that helps, and I will see you again. A bientôt.